Actress and comedian Tiffany Haddish made headlines when she was arrested in Peachtree City and charged with a DUI. Not long after, Haddish made an appearance on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, where she discussed the incident and talked about recent difficulties in her life.
I understand it was a tough week for you. I mean, you lost a few people that were very close to you.
One of our mutual friends, Bob Saget, who was like a big mentor to me, a big brother, father figure. He meant a lot to me. And then my grandma passed away, and she saved my life. You know, that's my heart. Like she was like my soulmate.
Yeah.
So that's been really hard to process all this. You know,
yeah.
Grief.
Grief, it is something we all experience, but how we deal with grief can have major implications on the quality of our life. I recently spoke with Dr. Suvrat Bhargave about this subject. Take a look. Dr. B, thank you so much for being with us. You know, one thing we've seen in the last 2 years especially is a lot of people are hurting, a lot of people are grieving. So today I want to dive into the different types of grief and also, most importantly, how we work through it. Let's talk about coping versus managing. Is there a difference?
I think there is. I think there's a subtle difference. And thank you again, Christine, for having me on. So coping with grief versus just managing it, I think is are you allowing yourself to fully feel what it is you need to feel, or are you just trying to get through the moments? And my encouragement always to people is, as emotions come up, try not to push them back down again. Allow them to actually come up so that you can cope with your grief in a very healthy way, and know that whatever emotions you're feeling are all very valid. So let yourself experience them completely.
What are the psychological and physiological effects of grief?
The truth is our emotional selves are tied to our physical selves. So as we go through difficult emotions, our bodies are going to reflect that. And for many people, that might mean being more tired or not getting enough sleep. For some people, it's the opposite, where they sleep too much and they have a hard time paying attention or getting through conversations. So don't be surprised as you grieve if your body also reflects that. But psychological grief really just means, again, the process of dealing with lots of different emotions that can come and go. So we have to allow ourselves the grace and the space to be able to do it physiologically and psychologically.
And there are so many different ways that people cope with grief. Let's talk about some of the healthy ones versus the unhealthy ways.
As you go through these difficult emotions, the sign that something isn't going well or that you're not dealing with it in a healthy way is if you get stuck in any one emotion. So in the process of grieving, all emotions are valid. You're going to feel sad, perhaps, or angry, maybe in denial for a while, these different emotions, and they may come back up again even after you've gone through them. All of that is okay. Let yourself feel those things. But if you find yourself getting stuck in one emotion and you can't get past feeling sad, or you can't get past the guilt or whatever the emotion is, that's the time to really reach out for someone. Reach out and get them to help you process it, talk it through, and know that you're not alone.
And do you find that the degree of loss impacts the level of grief? Meaning, if someone has lived a rich life and passes at 99 versus a sudden loss of a loved one, and you know what comes to mind is America's favorite dad, Bob Saget. He was so beloved. I imagine that to his loved ones, that would be a tougher reality to grasp than someone like a Betty White who lived this rich, long life.
Yeah, I think a lot of what makes grief difficult is the shock of losing someone. And the fact of the matter is, even when you've seen that person live a full, healthy life, or they've gone through a very difficult process of losing their life, it's still shocking. But to lose someone in a prime, or to lose someone suddenly, it just means that the emotions that come up might be more intense in the beginning, and it might be something that requires a different way of processing it through. So there is a difference, but at the end of the day, a loss is still a loss. And ultimately, you still have to feel what you have to feel. At some point, though, on the other side, we hope to celebrate that person's life. And that's the goal.
Absolutely. And in your practice, because I know this is subjective, but from what you've seen, your experience, does someone with a spiritual belief system cope with grief better than someone who maybe doesn't?
When you talk about the loss of a life, there are two aspects to faith that can really help us. One is an overall sense of purpose. What was our meaning of being here in this life, and what does it mean to go beyond this life? So having a sense of purpose. And then the other thing that faith provides us is so crucial, and that is a sense of hope.
Yes.
Right? There is something good on the other side of tough times. And so faith certainly helps provide that as well. It doesn't mean that for those who don't have a sense of spirituality that they won't be able to recover from grief, but faith does allow us to have that purpose and that sense of hope.
As Dr. B said, guys, if you're finding that your grief is getting worse or it prevents you from being able to function in your daily life, please, please consult with a grief counselor or a mental health provider. Remember, you are not alone and you don't have to walk this alone.